Okay, for the first part here, our first lesson, we're going to go through a process we use internally all the time. We'll be using Figma collaboratively to design and iterate upon all the stuff that's going to make its way from our project looking like this to this. Now, what you just saw was from the future, and that's because we're using the magic of post-production. Project looking like this to this. Now, what you just saw was from the future. And that's because we're using the magic of post-production to show a screenshot from the end of this lesson. In this lesson, we'll cover the 4 major actions in Figma that give you 90% of what you need to be able to quickly design. That's adding things, moving things, sizing or scaling things, and of course, duplicating things. That last one is going to be huge for being able to quickly iterate and to try out a variety of designs. But with this lesson and throughout this course, we'll cover a lot in a very short time. So whether you're just getting started in Figma, or if you're already a pro looking to see one of the workflows we use, we'll be here every step of the way. This is Figma. And while we're using Figma, the concepts here are generally the same, whether you're using Adobe XD or Sketch or Photoshop or Illustrator or even pen and paper. And to make this more believable for our entirely fictional product, we're bringing in the same kinds of notes a client might leave. Post-its.
I can see you, but I can't hear you.
Greemer, we can hear you, but we cannot see
You
you.
need to speak up a little louder. I can't hear you that well.
Let's get started. Now, the first thing you might notice in Figma here is that there are, or were, there it is, 2 separate... Greemer, we can see your cursor on the screen.
Yep, I'm in there.
So what we'll do to get started to keep everything contained, let's start with a frame. So up here, let's use the frame tool. And we could click and drag to define our own shape, but let's actually delete that one and go to frame. We could choose a preset here. We could use phone, tablet. For us, we're gonna start with MacBook Pro, just sort of a 1440 by 900, a default laptop size frame. And from there, let's start by actually just rapidly dropping things into our project, different headings, different sections, our navbar. In fact, let's start with the navbar, and we'll choose the rectangle tool. So let's click that, click and drag to define the shape. And of course, that is adding something. That's adding things. What about moving things? Now, one thing to note here in a frame, this rectangle is inside the frame. You can see it's a child of the frame, which means if you go outside that boundary, if you click and drag outside, notice how it clips off the edge. It clips everything outside the boundary of the frame. We can always move the navbar outside, bring it back in, but when it's a child of the frame, it will clip things off. So let's actually go in and click to drag. Let's snap this on the top left and just drag this corner to create our navbar. And this is a very low fidelity, a wireframe, quick mockup, so we don't have to worry about getting our pixels exactly perfect, our fonts, every single element perfect. We're just going to move rapidly to get stuff on the page. So with that in mind, let's add text, let's add our heading. Greemer, what are you working on?
I found my cursor, so I'm back to it.
Now, it's not very legible, the text is really small, so we could select everything and of course change the font size, that works, but let's undo for a second because we have a great opportunity to demonstrate scale. So if we click and drag to resize this right now, notice how it just changes the boundary. It just knocks the text down right there or changes the size of the boundary. Let's undo because we can go in and select our scale tool. And scale lets us change everything. It lets us size everything proportionally. Again, we're just clicking on the edge and dragging, and that lets us scale everything neatly. Let's duplicate this, holding down Option or Alt, so we have another line. And while we do this, let's go ahead and paste in, we have this on our clipboard, some of our basic text. This is from our completely and entirely real client. And we can resize the boundary just so we have a reference here. And it doesn't need to be that same font size. We can drop the font size here to maybe 14 and just position this on the page as a reference. So let's use that reference. Let's grab our text from this paragraph and let's paste it in here. That works okay. There's a few ways to size things in Figma, especially text. There are 3 that we're going to cover. You can have it automatically determine the width. So auto width, we'll set it to exactly how much text is inside. So if we change something in each color twice, notice how the width automatically changes. We can also choose paragraph. What paragraph lets us do, notice how if we set the width on this, it knocks down and creates exactly the amount of space that's needed to fit everything in that paragraph. Or of course, we could choose our third option, which is fixed size which is what we demonstrated a second ago. Just define the boundary, that box, and it will fit everything inside. Let's go back to paragraph, and we'll set the width right here is okay. Let's use K to scale this. That is our paragraph. We'll just move this over here. That looks pretty good for now. We also have a small bit of text above introducing Carpeak. So again, Option to drag and position a duplicate of this. Let's copy that, which is the text. It's Seltzer from the future. Let's copy that over and paste it in here. Notice how it set the font size based on what we pasted in over here. We could always just paste the text only. That works as well. Or we could change the text size later. So that's looking good. Let's set it to auto width here and drag this down. If we want just to eyeball it, we can align this just using left and right arrows to position this. That looks pretty good. Greamer, what do you think?
Well, thanks for asking. I do have a lot of design notes, but since this is low fidelity, we can just keep iterating and move forward.
Agreed. And something that might be helpful for now is let's grab one more rectangle. Let's size it like this. Let's change the color to, let's just say black with a low opacity. So we sort of define what the shape of this top section is. Now, if we try to select anything here, click and drag, notice how it's selecting this. That's because the order of these elements does matter in Figma. So we can click and drag to bring this down underneath everything, so now everything's selectable, or we can always use our keyboard shortcut to do the same thing. So now that that's there, let's select these objects again, shift drag, and we can see right there it snaps directly to the center of this element. So now, if we want to create more, let's grab our frame and let's drag. So this is a taller web page. We're just dragging down. So if we kind of zoom out, see a much longer single page design. And we can actually do a series of frames here, but for us, let's click and drag to select everything here and hold down Option so we can just make a copy of everything. And we'll put that right here so it snaps. And let's change this. Maybe the opacity could go a little lower here so we can see the difference between these two very subtly. And this is our second section. Maybe we want to move this to the right side. That looks okay, maybe a little more space there. And we'll do an image. Let's just do a placeholder right now. This will be where we'll put an image. That looks okay. Let's hold Shift and center this within this element right here. Good. And we'll do the same thing here. Let's select all of our text. What we're doing there is holding down Shift. So if you do select everything here, select everything, hold down Shift and then drag to select this. Now only the remaining stuff is selected. Let's make sure this is centered as well. And it is because we brought it in from over here. Give it a little more space. Bring this in a little bit. And let's update our copy. Right now it looks terrible.
That copy looks kind of terrible. Maybe you can fix that.
Thank you, Greamer. Let's do this one right here. We're just going to copy in fizz at the press of a button. And we'll, you know what? We actually don't even need that one. Let's bring this one up. We'll resize everything later. Let's paste and maybe select a smaller font size. Now in this case, instead of scaling, we can just hold down Option or Alt and click and drag to set the font size this way. This might work a little better for us. Select this and move everything down. So far, so good. Let's update the copy underneath. Now, sometimes for low fidelity, you can use lorem ipsum, filler text, that's okay. We're just doing this to save time since we happen to have this copy document already. Let's paste this in. Good for carbonating up to 21 drinks. The patented carbonizer packs magnetically seal. That's not correct.
Maguire, the word packs is a little confusing.
Yes, that's correct. Let's remove packs. So now the patented carbonizer magnetically seals to the inside of the lid. Want to refresh your beverage? Simply set your fizz level and press the top button. Again, we can manually size this or just set it to paragraph. That looks pretty good for now. Again, just eyeballing this, hold down Shift so it stays the same X position, but we're just going to align it right there to the center. That looks really good. Now, one more thing before we move on, let's click and drag at the boundary here to resize just so it aligns to the text on the top, just roughly aligns. So that's our placeholder for our image. That looks pretty good. Maybe some more space here. That looks okay. Let's continue. Highlight everything here, hold down Option or Alt, click and drag. This is our second section. We can move pretty rapidly here. Let's again differentiate the opacity here, just so we see the difference between these sections. And we'll paste in more. Greamer, why don't you get the paragraph and I'll get the heading.
Yeah, absolutely. I am copying the paragraph and I am already
Done.
there. Done. I think I beat you to it and you did the wrong section.
That is absolutely accurate.
Yeah.
Undo, paste,
Yeah.
paste without formatting.
Yeah,
there we go.
That's a good trick.
And because you can quickly iterate, and we were talking before about how duplicating something is a great time saver, you can just highlight all of this and click and drag, holding down Option or Alt. Now we have 4 sections, and we can continue to do that. We don't need 4 sections here. Thank you, Greamer, for the help there.
You got it.
We need 3. So let's do the last one. Again, if you want to do the paragraph.
On it.
Who's going to be faster here?
Mine is a little bit longer here, so...
Greamer, we're waiting on you.
I am copying, and I'm moving over to my part and highlighting everything, and I have to go back to it because I pressed the wrong thing, and I am right back at it, copying, and I am back where I should have been, and I am figuring out my keyboard, and it's there. It's copied.
So that's excellent. Great work, Greamer. At any time, if we click here on the G, this is Greamer's name, so if we click, we can actually see what he sees. So Greamer, if you wouldn't mind panning around and maybe zooming in, this is a great way to follow Greamer, especially if he's demonstrating something in real time.
Absolutely.
We can just follow his position in real time. We can follow his work. So at any point, we can actually just move on our own, and now we've disengaged from following Greamer. So this is our first 3 sections. So we've done the hero section, section 2, 1, whatever this one is. 3 different sections underneath the hero section. We're making huge progress. We don't have much more. We have a featured section now. So let's just grab this background right here, Option, and drag. Now, there are different ways to group and nest elements in Figma. We're not going to worry about that right now. We're just doing this really quickly to keep up the momentum. So this is going to be our featured in section. Maybe we can steal this text right here and say featured in. And we'll just center that right here.
Maguire, if you're still there, I think this is the moment to import the logos.
That's exactly what we'll do. So we'll drag in from off screen. We just have 5 images selected. We're actually going to drag them outside of the frame for right now, so we can just see what those are. So we have Bloomberg, we have the actual Carbeek logo. You can barely see it here. Gizmodo, Real Simple, and Wired. Let's drag that out just so we have a reference here. And we're not going to use the Carbeek logo for right now, so let's kind of drag that out of the way. And we have these remaining ones. Let's select all of them and drag them into the frame. And we'll use scale, this time with the keyboard shortcut K, and we can just drag with all 4 of them selected to resize.
This is looking really good.
It's great for a low fidelity mockup. And if we want, we can space these, and instead of having to do this manually and eyeballing it, you can actually select all of these at once and distribute the spacing. So we can distribute vertical spacing. In this case, we want horizontal spacing, and that'll make sure the space is distributed evenly. So we can do that. Let's center this again. So notice how when we did that, it actually scaled everything. That's because the scale tool is still selected. We can just switch back to the move tool using V. And now we're just adjusting the height. That looks pretty good. Again, low fidelity, let's keep the momentum up. 2 more sections, a call to action section. So let's do that. Let's grab this for a starting point. Bring it down here. Greamer, can you make the frame a little bit taller?
I'm on it.
While Greamer's doing that, let's start with our contact.
It's done.
Let's drag this down. Again, let's do, it's almost here, be among the first. Greamer, can you grab the paragraph to go under that? We'll put in a little paragraph preset here, maybe set it to center. Can you grab the text that goes in there?
Absolutely.
All right, and we'll center this horizontally. Bring this up here. And we want to name an email field. Let's just draw a rectangle for that for right now. Again, let's lower the opacity, holding down Option or Alt, and dragging, just so we have a shape of where the name and email fields are. Now, notice how a lot of stuff is going on here. There's a lot of alignment points. We do have different points for different types of alignment. Later, we can get really precise with this, but notice how when we're aligning to the frame, the height of the line, the alignment line, goes all the way up and down the frame. So that's what we'll use here. Option, drag, and now we have our contact section. We could get more specific with this. In fact, this alignment might be off a little bit. There we go, that's better. This one was already pretty good. Okay, that's looking okay. Let's bring these closer. Again, just eyeballing it to move rapidly. That's okay. And finally, let's add our footer. Greamer, would you mind making the canvas slightly taller?
Absolutely, I'm on it.
Okay.
There you go. It's slightly taller now.
It looks great. If we zoom out and kind of take a look at the whole thing, it's looking really good so far. We just have one more section, which is the footer itself. So let's do that. Let's grab this color up here, this rectangle, Option, drag, and this is where our footer will live. And let's align it up here. Looks good. And in our footer, we'll use our logo. Of course, we could just use placeholders for now. Have our Carbeak logo over here. Let's drag that maybe to the left. And go for a darker footer here. Looks good. And again, if we don't want to worry about brightness, color, things like that, we don't have to. Again, we're just doing this very quickly so we can make it legible. Let's pull this over here. Let's say the Carbeak logo goes there. We'll use scale and make it a little bit larger. Okay. That looks pretty good. And Greamer, let's do 3 sections here. Again, we're just going to grab some of our example text. Just for time, let's make that text white. Let's zoom in and let's call this one address using K for scale. Drag that down like that. Looks good. Option drag. And let's grab from our clipboard real quick the address. That's okay. And let's set it to paragraph. Set the width here. And we do need to separate this. So we have 4th floor on a separate line. San Junipero, California. That works for now. Let's put that here. Address here. Let's bold this. Again, we're just eyeballing it. Greamer, how does that look?
That looks good. I like the bold, but it seems tilted on my screen.
Where?
The address is a little tilted.
Can you zoom in to verify that it does indeed look that way?
Yeah. It's better now, but I don't know if it's me or not, but it feels a little tilted.
It's not tilted.
Okay.
Don't know what you're talking about. Okay, let's move on to social. And again, we're just using quick placeholders here, so we can always change this later. Instagram. Let's just type this out for now. It's Instagram, dribble, Behance. Let's do another column, just option to drag to copy this. Let's do LinkedIn, TikTok. Is that correct? Camel case?
Yeah, TikTok.
Twitter, and that works for now. And finally, let's add one more for newsletter. Just going to select both of these, holding down Shift to select both. Option, drag, and if you're option dragging and you don't want it to move everywhere like this, you just want it to move left and right, hold down Shift and it'll lock it so it's just moving left and right like this. Notice how Figma is giving us an indicator, that spacing indicator. It's saying the distance between here and here is 83, and we can see that if we hold down Option and drag. Notice how it locks. It shows 83 as the width, not only between these 2 points right here, but it's validating right over there that 83 is the width between these 2 things as well. So great reference. This is looking pretty good for now. Greamer, you might have made this frame a little too tall.
There you go. It snapped right to the footer.
And that's it. That's our first quick low fidelity mockup. Here's where iteration gets really, really interesting. A lot of people might prefer to go in and start optimizing. Well, maybe this would look better, if we move this over here, and this would be. The problem is, as we try more things out during the iteration process, as we try different versions or experiment, which gets really fun with design in Figma, sometimes it helps to keep the original and show almost a design evolution. So we can actually grab our entire frame and holding down Option or Alt, just gonna click and drag here. Of course, let's undo that. You can also hit Command D to duplicate. And notice how it just created a full copy of everything. So now over here, we wanna say, okay, what would a centered version of this look like? Well, we can select the 3 of these. We can say text center, and we can even align them just using this align tool right here. Align horizontal centers. We can just shift this right over, so now it's centered. And maybe on this design, we want to swap so it goes back and forth on the second section here. So let's move this over here and this over here. Let's just swap these real quick. So we have kind of an inverted look. Again, it's not perfect. We can always make this perfect later. But notice how we have a second version here. Again, selecting the frame itself, Command D to make another copy. And in this one, maybe let's try a larger, let's make it really big, the H1 on this page, the main heading. Let's make that bigger. Let's move this down. Maybe we want to make it Seltzer from the future a little bit larger. Now we can start playing, we're still in low fidelity, but let's make this bold just to see what it looks like. And just making some quick changes here to eyeball it.
I'm really digging the centered one with the big bold H1.
Would you like the H1 to be larger? Just holding down
Maybe, yeah.
Option
Can you try that?
and dragging.
Yeah.
Just say when.
Stop. NG. That's good.
Undo, of course, is always helpful. So this is our third iteration. Maybe we want to do background images. Let's try a version where we subtract all of these. Let's grab the text. Again, you can just grab all of this at once and then hold Shift and just click the sections to deselect. So now we have all 3 of these selected. Let's try to center those and set this to centered. And very quickly, we've just iterated on another version of this. Maybe let's undo to regain our selection. Let's move all of this maybe to the bottom so we could have perhaps background images here. Let's select each of these just to eyeball what it would look like. Bold, that looks pretty good. Just select all three of the headings here. Just move up a little bit. Again, just very quickly iterating. We see 3 versions and we can kind of see the evolution or the growth here from version to version. Maybe on this one, the fields are a little wide. Let's choose our move tool, shortcut V, hold down Option and drag. Maybe fields that are about that big. And let's add another button down here, or rather copy our field so we can turn it into what is another button. Of course, we can always center these things. That works okay. But the amazing thing with iteration here, using Figma or other tools like this, is that you can very quickly see that the growth here is exponential. We went from manually creating a hero section. We used parts of that to create our secondary sections. We used parts of that to create our call to action and our footer. And then of course, we took all of that in the frame and duplicated it. Then we duplicated it yet again. So we're getting exponential with the rate of output that we have. In fact, let's make one more. Command D with our frame selected. We now have a 4th version. And this one, maybe it's time to reduce this a little bit. Let's do K for scale, reduce a little bit. And maybe we want, in this instance, everything centered. Let's just move that up so it's a bit more centered. Greamer, any other notes on this?
Yes, you misspelled Karbik.
Really?
No.
Okay. Let's move on to medium fidelity or mid-fidelity mockups. Now, every designer, every design team is going to define this a little bit differently. There are a lot of people who would do a low-fidelity mockup like we just did without actual text, just using shapes, and that's okay. There are a lot of people who wouldn't set a darker color to the footer and just, again, do basic shapes. In fact, there are purists that will only do shapes or just outlines in their low-fidelity mockups, and that's perfectly okay. For us, we've done something that gets us an idea of placement and size and the types of elements on the page. So when we're going from low fidelity to medium fidelity, we'll be adding some more resolution to our mockup. So let's start here and let's grab, let's say MacBook Pro 4. Of course, we can always name this or rename this. Let's drag it down here. And this is where we're gonna start our medium fidelity mockups. And here, we might wanna add some information to our navbar. So let's make this, let's go dark with this. Let's do a black background. So one thing we want to do in the top left of our navbar, let's grab that Karbik logo, Option drag to make a copy of it, or we can always copy it to our clipboard. Let's just drag this all the way up here on top of our navbar. K to scale, and we'll just size it. Just eyeball it for right now. That looks pretty good. Now, when it comes to placement, especially when we're setting boundaries or almost containment containers and things like this, you could actually use a grid in Figma. So let's select our frame and we'll add a layout grid. We'll just go to add a layout grid. And by default, we get a grid that is a 10 pixel grid. So this is really helpful for alignment, design, UI, user interfaces. But let's go in and actually change this from grid to columns. And we'll just do one column. There are a million ways to do this, by the way, but in this instance, we'll set our width. First, let's set our type from stretch to center. Then we'll set our width to something like, let's say 1200 pixels. That looks pretty good. And it also helps us because maybe red is a little bold for right now. Let's maybe change to a darker color just so we can see the edges here. That looks okay. And let's click out because now we can take Karbik and align it. Notice how it snaps really nicely there. So we're creating this alignment point for stuff on the left and right. And this might be helpful if we decide, let's say, you know what, let's do this. Let's select all of these, align them to the left, change it to left. Now notice how it's perfectly aligned from here. We have that alignment point on the left. So we have that continuity, not only between sections, but in things like the navbar and things like the footer. We can always come back to this, but this is a great starting point. This is our navbar, and let's add some links to it. Let's steal from here. Let's click and drag while holding Option. Move this over here. Of course, we won't be able to see it because it's black. Let's turn that to white and let's use K to scale. In mid-fidelity, we could care a little more about precise fonts, but we're just going to eyeball it for this. Let's set it to features. We'll link to our features section. So let's set this to auto width. Now we made our first one. Let's make a second one. Option, hold down Shift as well and drag. Let's let this one be reviews. We don't have reviews, so let's do famous company logos. That's fine now. Let's drag this over, holding down Shift, and we'll do one more. This one will be sign up. And again, we can select all three of these. Let's get the spacing somewhat where we want it. And we can select all of these. Let's say it was a little bit off like this. You can select all of these and tidy up. And let's align it to the right side. That looks pretty good. Again, we could just move everything. If we wanted a little tighter, we could just select these again. Of course, we can go and distribute horizontal spacing. It looks pretty good for now. It might make sense to make this final one, since this is our primary CTA, a button-like design. So let's do a color here. Let's just choose kind of a blue color for now. And if we try to put that over this, notice how it is on top of the text, so it hides it. Right bracket. And we can kind of put this inside to make a button for right now. There are a million ways to create buttons to auto-size things, which we can get into another time. For now, let's very quickly move this over here. Let's actually group the selections so they stay together. Looks pretty good. Now we have to distribute one more time horizontally. That looks pretty good for the nav bar for now. We could also use this moment to select everything inside this frame. In fact, we can just collapse this and just select everything that's a child of this frame and change the font. Let's switch from Roboto to, say, Enter. And when we do that, there are some things that shift. That's okay. We can adjust this. Maybe even choose an alternate for each of these headings. Let's select these headings, just holding down Shift and selecting each of these headings. Let's maybe do Playfair display, Playfair display. Say regular or bold. Just to eyeball what this looks like with Playfair. That's okay, okay to scale. But one thing we might want to do is see what a dark mode of this would look like. So even though we're not done with our mid-fidelity, let's use this to sort of save where we are and just hit Command D to create another duplicate. So we keep this kind of versioning history, this iteration history on the left side. So for this one, we might want to select all the text. So how do we do that? Do we do that one by one? No, we can just use our layers panel over here, select the first one, go down to the bottom of that text. We have all of our text here, and let's just set that selection color to white or a light gray color. Now, right now we can't see anything. That's okay. We have to switch the background colors here. So let's grab these, all of them. We have two different selection colors. Again, for our sections, we had this 1% opacity alternating with this 4% opacity. Let's change our 4%. Let's change that to, say, 100. And let's take our 1% and change that to something in the 90s. You can actually see we had an alignment issue here, which is good. We can fix that real quick. Let's select this, drag that up. That's okay. And of course, none of the things in Featured In are visible. There are lots of ways to do this, but to save time, we actually have a light version of these logos. Let's drag that right in here. And we'll use K to scale. We'll drag down to resize and get this about right here. Maybe we want some more space between these. Let's do that. Again, selecting all of these, and we'll distribute horizontal spacing. Let's make sure it's aligned, and it is. That looks pretty good. Now, notice how the alignment, that sort of column we created before, notice how the alignment isn't always visible, or it's a lot less visible. We can always go into that one column layout and switch it to a lighter color so we can see what's going on in the background. Again, if we want to see what this looks like without the column, we can select, at any point, we can select the frame and just turn off visibility on that so we can see what this looks like. Even right now, it might make sense to change this to a darker color. Looks pretty good. And of course we can select these, make adjustments there as well. Maybe some lighter colors and a call to action that perhaps matches that previous color. And that is okay. These colors don't look great. Let's select those and see what's going on. Okay, so let's move those over here. Okay, so there's two selection colors here. There we go. Okay. So these are the alternates. Let's move that up. That looks pretty good. Okay, so we have our sort of dark mode here. Let's add at least placeholders right now, since we'll be doing the product renderings in the next part of this course. Let's add where those placeholders are going to go. So we'll just make this a dark color for right now. We'll bring this up front. And so roughly we'll place some product photography right here. Maybe on this one, we know that this has a seltzer carbonator. So let's show the top, that button. Let's create a circle here. And let's show 3 of those. Checking spacing between each of these. That looks pretty good. Let's hold down Shift to scale these down a little bit. Just eyeballing what it's going to look like for a top view for each of these buttons. That looks pretty good. Keeps your seltzer cold. So for this, we know we want to feature the base station. So we're kind of just shifting these down so we can make room for product photography above each of these headings in each section. So let's create a base station. I'm just going to resize this so it looks somewhat like a base station. And then this can be the water bottle on top of that. In fact, let's just do a rectangle to continue that. So what we're doing here is we're eyeballing what it might look like. Do we have to do all of our 2D and even 3D design in Figma? No, of course not. But it might help us to get a better perspective on what these things look like. Let's use the eyedropper and select that. That looks pretty good. So you get this idea that it's on top of a base station charging there. That looks pretty good. And we can take this concept into ultraviolet or ultra lightweight ultraviolet. Let's move this down a little bit. And same kind of deal here. We have this cap that comes off of it. So let's make that with 2 of these and a rectangle in between. So this is our seltzer bottle cap. Just roughly eyeballing this. It does not have to be perfect. But we have sort of a cap right here. And let's copy that. So we have a bottom part of that. And for this, let's just make this a darker color. Let's move it to the front, right bracket. So we have sort of this cap. And of course, let's create the rest of the water bottle underneath this. Let's grab the rest of these things and bring them forward. Actually, let's bring this forward one more time. Now we can set the color on the bottle itself. Something like that. That looks pretty good for now. Maybe because we're in mid-fidelity, let's make sure this color matches. Let's do that. Okay, so now we have this top, this cap exposed. And we have this idea that we have ultraviolet light, so how are we going to show that? Well, we could just do a linear gradient here from kind of a couple different colors. It looks okay. Let's make sure the opacity there is full. This is kind of ultraviolet look. Again, we're going to be doing the render in Cinema 4D, but this gets the idea across. We have this cap that exposes that everything's being treated with ultraviolet inside of the Carbique water bottle. Greemer, is that how you say Carbique?
Yeah, I've been thinking about it. I think it's Carbique.
Breathtaking. So that's all of these sections. We have our first 3. So we have the fizz at the press of a button. And generally we have the shape of the page. Maybe these are a little too bright. They're taking too much attention. Let's select these, decrease that brightness. So you get a general idea of what's going on the page. This is much better. Maybe to differentiate this section, let's make it a little bit brighter. That looks okay. So we have each of our sections. We see we have our nav bar. We know there's going to be product photography over here. Fizz at the press of a button. That looks fine. Let's iterate one more time. Grab MacBook Pro 6. Again, we could just name these. Double click mid-fidelity 1. Copy that to the clipboard. Mid-fidelity 2. And now let's hit Command D. Automatically mid-fidelity 3. Greemer, what should we do to get this from mid-fidelity 2 to mid-fidelity 3? What do you want to change between each of these?
I think just to start with the hero section, just kind of figure out the sizing between the H1 and the paragraph and the subtitle.
Got it. So each of these right now is the same size. Maybe we can do, actually, what would happen if we did this? Would you want each of these to be the same size, or do you want this to be a little bit larger like that?
Yeah, I would like the subtitle to be a little bit larger than a paragraph.
All right. Bold or regular, medium?
Medium, maybe.
Okay, so we have that. So introducing Carbique, we have then intermedium. It's seltzer from the future, and then under that we have Carbique is bold, Carbique is beautiful, and unlike other products which contribute negatively to the environment, you only need one of these in each color. So we'll have different colors to the right over here. How's the spacing look now? Consistent between these?
It looks almost too consistent.
So
I think the subtitle and the paragraph needs to be a little bit closer to, yeah, if you tilt it a little bit.
All right, tilt.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's good. And it leads towards like you follow along and you are really following along and then until you fall.
All right, well, undo the rotation. Are you saying you want these closer like that?
A little bit, yeah.
Strong disagree.
Okay. That's the beauty of design.
What if actually the heading is closer like that, and then the paragraph is a little more separated?
I can work with that.
Okay, so this is okay. We can get design feedback from Sada a little bit later, but for now, what do you think about that for iteration mid-fidelity number 3?
It's a good start. I think we should move on.
Okay, great. So now we're in Fizz at the press of a button. One of the differentiating points here is that everything is that same color, F6, F6, F6. So even if the size is correct, what if we take some of these paragraphs, or at least these 3 paragraphs, and decrease the opacity a little bit? 75% opacity. So you have this differentiation between the much brighter H2 and the less bright paragraph.
So the background color in the section and the color of the paragraph now is very close.
Oh, got it. So what if we just drop these to pure black?
Ooh, yeah. Immediately, yes.
Okay, and then just for the sake of example, let's actually make this black right now too. We know we're going to put an image there. What do you think?
It's very dark now, but I like it.
Okay.
I actually like it.
Right now, it doesn't seem like there's any logos. So
yeah, we need to bring them back.
Are they there?
They might not have. Yeah, we need to copy them over. Maybe they didn't. Oh, you know what happened?
What happened?
When you put them, copied them earlier, they wasn't in the
right. These
right.
are not actually in.
Yeah.
Excellent observation. Okay, so let's drag these into, what was that, mid-fidelity 2, right? So let's drag these into mid-fidelity 2. Now they're part of that. Let's actually option, drag, put these in mid-fidelity 3, check to make sure they are there, and let's center these. Great note, Greamer.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, and then the bottom, do we want that black as well?
Yeah, let's try that, yeah.
Okay.
And then maybe, yeah, I like the footer is different, and then maybe the nav bar.
Is there any world in which we don't actually make all of these pure black, but we alternate very slightly?
Yeah.
Like select every other one, call to action, and just make it slightly lighter, like dark, dark, dark gray, like 11, 11, 11.
Yes.
What do you think?
I think we're onto something.
Okay. Undo. Okay. All right. So what else do we want to do in mid-fidelity 3?
Maybe if we want to look at the nav bar and make some difference there between the background.
Oh, more of a lift here. Let's
yeah,
do the same thing.
Lift, yes.
11, 11, 11, which we can shortcut by pressing 1, 1, 1. Press enter. If you do that, a 3-digit hex code like 111, it'll duplicate each time. So if you type in 111, it knows that shorthand for 11, 11, 11, which is what happened right here. Just like if we do 222, it'll do 22, 22, 22. Let's put it back to 111. That's fine. Maybe decrease the font size here a little bit. It's 18. Maybe something like 15 or 16. What do you think, Green?
Yeah. Yeah, that actually gives the call to action more attention. I like it.
Okay. Let's look at our alignment. Let's turn on that column. Looks pretty good. So everything's nicely aligned. This could be an example of when we can take the Carbeak logo, pull that to the side, or even top align some of this. We could put the Carbeak logo here, get our information, all our social stuff up here as well. So it kind of aligns with that, or maybe even here. And then let's decrease the size a little bit. It's 19. Let's do 16. I can always change this later. What do you think of that, Greamer?
I like it. I can go ahead and actually make the frame a little smaller.
Yeah.
If we need to.
Nice collaboration.
Yeah.
Can you make the frame a little bit taller?
Taller, yeah.
Yeah.
Like this?
Yeah, less tall. Maybe shorter.
Shorter? Mm-hmm. Like this?
Yeah, perfect. I think that's it.
You got it.
Okay, so that is everything in mid-fidelity number 3. Let's turn off that grid to see how this looks, and let's take a look at our progress so far. In fact, if we really wanted to see a sort of growth over time, we could grab our 3 mid-fidelity mocks, and we can bring them all the way up here next to the others. And we can see this evolution of our web design. We started with MacBook Pro, what we call MacBook Pro 1, but again, that frame is named MacBook Pro because that's the starting size we used. And we evolved all the way from this sort of basic hero with 3 images with stuff to the right, and we evolved through 6 additional iterations. We evolved all the way to mid-fidelity number 3. And from this point, this is where we can see a lot of where we can place our actual product photography. So we can see how this is going to turn into something that looks much more photoreal using Cinema 4D and Octane. But this is a really good start. But throughout all of this, throughout each of these evolutions from version 1 in low fidelity to version 4 low fidelity, and then all the way from mid-fidelity to version 3 there, in all of those, we used, again, 90% of that was using one of the 4 primary functions of Figma. 4 primary actions. Of course, that's adding things, moving things, scaling or sizing things, and finally duplicating things. Duplicating was the key to make sure we could quickly iterate, not just on heading to heading, paragraph to paragraph, but entire sections to entire sections, and even entire versions of this site to additional iterations of each site version. So that's it. We went from our Figma document looking like this, and we ended with this. But this is just the beginning. In the next part of this course, we're in full product design mode because we're going to use Cinema 4D and Octane to develop all the product renders to take us from placeholders to production assets.
Okay, that's one lesson down, but we want to see your design. Share your wireframes, your Figma illustrations, share your process. All of this using hashtag Figma to Webflow. We will be sharing these publicly, and I will be choosing some of my favorites to feature in live streams and on social. Lastly, great design is all about storytelling. So I'm gonna tell you a story. Greamer.
A lot of people don't know this about me, but I'm the first Icelandic test tube baby. And that brings up a lot of memories. Over 34 years, I have experienced so much related to being the first Icelandic test tube baby. And one that stands out is my 10-year-old birthday party. I had, I think, around 150 of my friends at my house. We had so many pizzas. And the TV station came to film the whole party. It was absolutely incredible. I was interviewed and eating pizza and drinking Coke and things like that. It was absolutely fantastic. But what came with it was a lot of fame, which, to be honest, I've handled pretty well over the years. I think we had the TV station there. The Icelandic television was there filming the whole thing. And I was interviewed, and Sarah, are you listening?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm really opening up here and sharing with you. So the TV station was there, and I'm being interviewed. So that leads to the fame part. And as the first Icelandic test tube baby, I get free gym memberships all over the country, which is very which is very convenient. And that's where I started developing my left tricep with a half sweater because my left bicep was so massive, and I was able to wear it there without being where I started weightlifting like an absolute strong person, like Icelandic strong, like a company. That's not a company. It's like a what's it called? Sarah, help me out here. It is like when you're together in a group. Organization.
Team.
Yeah. I'm probably gonna write a book. Would you read that book, Sarah?
Yeah.
Okay. I've asked a lot of people if they would read the book, if I would write it, and people want to know. They want to know these stories. They need to know, actually. They need to hear this. It's so funny when I say these things these things out loud. The more important it becomes. It's more obvious that everyone needs to know this. Okay, Sarah, thank you for listening. I'm going to go get some tea and continue my life story as a test tube baby. I have so many stories. Just not right now. I don't want to say them all. I mean, I can, if you want. I don't have anything to do. I'm done. Which he isn't. I am the first Icelandic test tube baby. But here's the thing. He is the first. Are you listening, Sarah? Okay. He is the first Icelandic person who is a test tube baby made in Iceland. Born 1 year after me. My name is Screamer, so that means masks. So between two masks. Anyways, so she tells me that story. And she fights for me in that party.
I'm sorry, I can't listen to this anymore.
What?
Yeah,
Say it again.
I think we're done.
Okay, when are you available next?